Hello and welcome to Unsourced. My name is Elvis, and as always, I am your host. This is going to be a very special episode. It's a bonus episode. We're going to be looking through the DCEU, at least Snyder's version, in a special retrospective. And I'm joined here in this special episode with one of my favorite people, my favorite Twitter mutuals. Some of the best thoughts and kind of opinions on comics Twitter come from this guy. It's Roliver Queen. Can you introduce yourself?
Yo, what's going on, Elvis? Thank you for having me once again. And yo, let's talk about the Snyder Cut. Let's talk about these movies, man. I'm excited, brother.
Yes, me too. It's going to be really exciting. It's right on the horizon. It's like 3 weeks from now. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
After like 3 to 4 years, it's finally upon us. So we're going to be going through Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, maybe even both things, like just what are our general ideas about what it could be, and also the Flashpoint news. Save that for what the future of the DCEU is going to be, regardless. Just see where this is going. All right, so let's start off Man of Steel. Like, what do you think? Is it good, bad, in between?
I thought Man of Steel was a solid movie. Like, I've only watched it a handful of times, but the most recent time, which was like last week, that movie aged well.
It really is.
It's a really solid movie. Like, it's straight to the point. I don't know. I felt like I was literally reading a comic book when I was watching that movie, and that's how it flowed so well. And it's like, yo, this is a good adaptation. Like, anybody who doesn't know, jack squat about Superman, they could watch this movie and they have a decent idea.
Exactly. It feels like a really solid, substantial narrative. It really does take itself seriously, but not in a bad way, in a way that, like, okay, let's be as fulfilling toward this idea, toward these characters as possible, which is great. I think Goyer and Snyder are like the peak form here. It's my favorite out of all of these, bar none. But yeah, you're right. It has aged well with time. I remember like watching it for the first time in theaters and just not really caring about it that much. But over the years, I've become more fascinated by a lot of things it does and it has to say. It's a slower movie. It's more personal and it's more character driven. And so that's why I can understand why some people really don't like it, because it's not very blockbustery traditionally. But the writing and the characters and performances are all like really engaging. It's really personal feeling,
Oh, yeah.
So there might be some blunt as shit stuff, David Goyer is not a subtle writer. He wrote like some of the messiest lines in Batman Begins. And that's the same thing here. Like, it's very messy at times, but it really it hits you over the head. I'm gonna be honest. It hits you over the head sometimes, but that just makes it more sincere, feels genuine. So yeah, I think it's definitely like really good, maybe even really great. So yeah, I really like it. I like it a lot. So let's what is your ideas on some of the more controversial aspects of this movie? Like first off, do you think Pa Kent is a psychopath or a sociopath?
No, I don't. I don't think he's a sociopath at all. And I know we talked earlier, but I honestly don't get where those takes are coming from. Like, it still boggles my mind, dude.
It really does. It boggles my mind too. Especially like 8 years on, and people don't understand like these scenes. People just still go out of their way to just imprint and project onto this character like he's some sort of unfeeling, uncaring monster. When, I get it. Other Pa Kents, like in Smallville, the other movies, comics, they're more like wise. They're more like all-knowing. Like they're a mentor character, which is great. Superman needs that. And that's not really what he is here. He's like a really grounded version. Like, what if you had this kind of child that was this important? Like, how would you deal with that? And it's great. Like Kevin Costner, his performance in this is like pitch perfect in its precision, where like everything he says is like unsure of itself. Like he's really, really scared about like what he might be saying. Because if you had a kid who you knew was going to be the most important person in the world, you'd be really careful what you said to him and how you raised him. And that's that movie. Like, even if feels a little bit weird, like, maybe, when he says maybe, that's the big line. When the bus crash almost drowns all those kids and he says maybe. Everyone hates that line, but I feel like that's so like heart-wrenching because he's put in a position.
It's honestly one of my bigger complaints with the complaints. Because even, with him and, Ma Kent, like, dude, these are parents acting like parents at the end of the day. Like, the things that they're saying, even in, Batman v Superman, like these are things a regular parent would say to their child. If you don't know, if you don't think that, like there's something very wrong with you, because it's, we'll get to Mark Kent, but yeah, I know there's a couple scenes, where people, what was it, the tornado scene? I know
Exactly.
People had a lot of issues with that. I was like, no, dude, this is a parent. This is a parent that wants to protect his child. He wants to make sure when it's time for, his child to reveal themselves.
Exactly.
It's at a great time. It's at a time where he's matured. It's at a time where he's grown.
Exactly. And Pa Kent, like, we only ever see him like when Clark's a child and he could hurt other kids, or when the oldest we see Pa Kent and Clark together is when Clark is 18, and 18-year-olds are stupid as shit.
Yeah.
Like you have to be careful with that kind of stuff, and he's always doing his best. And he just, at the very end of the day, Pa Kent's core in this movie is responsibility, is trying to instill responsibility and the care and caution that means. Like most of the Pa Kents I was talking about, they're all about Clark's limits. Like, Pa Kent dies of a heart attack, and so Clark knows his limits, so he can't save everyone. But this Pa Kent is actually about what those limits represent. He, even though he has all this power, like what limits do those have? And it's himself, so he has to regulate himself. And that's really great. I think that's a really, really personal, really intimate kind of way of looking at this, like through a parent's eyes. And you're talking about, the death flashback. I love that scene because, well, it's a silly scene. Like the dog, you're going after the dog. It's silly. Like I'm saying, it's not a perfect movie. I'm not going to argue that it's perfect. It's some parts of it are just really kind of goofy. But what I love about that scene and the complaints and the complaining about the complaints and everything like that is that after that scene ends, Clark lays out the message for the audience. Like just everything we've said, he says directly to the audience. And yeah, like, it's blunt, but like that's why I don't understand how people misunderstand that scene. Like he just tells it, like, my father taught me responsibility. That's that fucking point. So why are you complaining?
Why? It's, again, we'll probably touch on this later.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of these complaints are just, they're just very nitpicky.
Yes.
And that's something we've come to see a lot, with the, just the DCEU movies in general, especially the ones where Snyder was heavily invested in.
Yes.
But yeah, the death scene made sense, man.
Yeah,
it made sense.
It made sense thematically.
It made sense thematically, and just where everybody was at in that point in time. Clark, dude, you're an 18-year-old dude. We were pieces of shit. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing at 18.
He's like talking back, like saying some bullshit too. Like, you're not my real dad, and farming isn't important. And that's really kind of like rude stuff. He's still just like a rude, like unthinking, careless kind of teenager. He's not. I'm not saying he's like a bad guy or anything like that. He's going to be a bad guy, but he's just careless. You're not careful.
Yeah, and I'm at also too, just like, imagine, he goes in half cocked during that death scene. You do not know. You could have just potentially made the problem worse, because you're an 18-year-old. You still don't know the full extent of your powers.
Exactly.
That's another thing too. And Pa Kent understood that.
Exactly. Like, he's got to grow. He's got to mature. And like, people are like, why didn't he just like run directly into super speed or anything like that? How do we supposed to know he knows he has super speed?
Exactly.
Like, all we've seen in these flashbacks is that he knows he has heat vision, he knows he has super hearing, and he knows he has super strength, but they never test his limits. Like, even when later in the movie with Jor-El, the Jor-El hologram says you need to keep testing yourself. He's never tested himself.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't know how far he can take it. So honestly, Pa Kent could have thought that maybe a tornado could have hurt him somehow. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
And like, would you, as a parent, like say, okay, we're gonna test out how strong you are? No,
you would not.
Even if you knew he was like superhuman, you wouldn't like, okay, let's test it out. No, you still want to take care of your kid because that's your kid.
Yeah, that's again, it's just typical parent shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is nitpicky. Like, there are stuff to talk about this movie, like criticize that movie. Like I said, it's goofy, it's blunt. Like having Superman come out and say the message would be really, really bad. You know, it's still kind of iffy, but I think it's the way that scene presented and the reaction to that scene that makes it a lot more palatable to me. Like if people weren't complaining about that scene for no reason, but complaining about like the way it's constructed, like just stating out loud the message, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. But like, no, you're missing the forest for the trees.
And again, which is, again, it's just another another ongoing problem
Exactly.
we have with this fandom.
Exactly. But like, let's move on to the next biggest complaint about this movie, which is, does Superman hate saving people?
Oh boy. Okay. Superman does not hate saving people. Listen, how do I say this? Dude, when a firefighter goes and saves people from a fucking fire, does the firefighter go inside with a big ass grin on his face like, hey, I'm going to go and save you?
Exactly.
No, dude. You got to stay focused. You got to keep your head in the game. Does Green Arrow go inside of a building to save people with a smile on his face?
Exactly.
No.
Or like when people were like, oh, Superman is like just mean. He's a bully. For like,
no.
Like what? What? Because he destroyed that guy's truck? Like that guy, I mean, he ruined his livelihood, his income. Like he did. Who gives a shit? That guy deserved it. And, I mean, that Superman is like, he's still like untrained or anything. He's still not like a paragon yet. He's still just a kind of drifter. So he's doing what he can, and he can't reveal himself or anything like that. So I understand that scene completely. And I don't think it means that he's a bad guy. A lot of people say like, oh, Superman's a mean, he's a bully. Yeah, and it's ridiculous. It really is.
Like sometimes when I hear some of these complaints, I wonder if they're watching an Elseworlds movie and they just got it confused.
Like, and these complaints are coming from like people who are like comic writers and comic artists, and like, seriously, like, I don't understand. Like, these people who have worked with Superman, with DC before.
Really?
Yes, I see it all the time, and it's like I can understand why a lot of the more hardcore fandom would be really annoyed. I'm not going to excuse the most hardcore Snyder fans because they've done some really grody, scummy shit. But like, I can see why people will be annoyed in general by the complaints because a lot of them are flimsy as shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things about this is that it brings us back to one of the main important undercurrents in Man of Steel, which is that Superman can't help but be a good person. Like you have everyone complaining about Pa Kent, how Pa Kent was telling him not to save people, which isn't what he was saying. But even if you take that as at face value, their complaint, Superman is still helping people. He's helping people even when it hurts him, even when it gives away his identity, even when he makes him start a new life. He can't help but help people, like on the oil rig, along the road, everywhere, because he's a good person and that's who he is inside. And if anything, it helps emphasize and highlight that, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite aspects just of the movie in general. Just like, alongside, him just like figuring out who he is as a person, dealing with being a alien in the human world. Like, just deep down inside, you can tell that this is a guy who grew up with a wholesome family, with a lot of values,
a lot of virtues, yes,
principle. Because, dude, come on now, like, you can't really say that there's a lot of people who, if they were to get superpowers, the first thing that they would do is want to help people. Come on, man. No, like this is like genuinely some wholesome content.
Exactly.
Like, and it's the embodiment of, what we see a lot of in Superman, in the comics, especially he is just somebody who wants to help people. He will go out of his way to help people. And that's cool, man.
Yes. And this is also, I think, really highlighted in the best set piece in the movie, the Battle of Smallville, which I think is way better than the Battle of Metropolis, because of this, because it's about going out of your way, about helping people, about kind of like that small, charming kind of sense, that wholesome sense you were talking about. You agree about this Battle of Smallville?
For the Battle of Smallville, that was when
he was fighting the chick, Feora, and Nod, the silent guy.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah!
That's really good, because out of any scene in that movie, out of any action scene, that has like the most iconic classic Superman style stuff. He's saving people from helicopters that are crashing. He's telling people to stay inside. He's keeping people safe around him in the environment. It's really great. It's really well done. And I can understand people's complaints about Metropolis stuff because you don't really see any of that. I know that he's out helping on the other side of the world and everything, you know? You don't really see that, you know? It detaches the audience. But the Battle of Smallville, it immerses you right into there. The way the movie is shot, you know, it's shot in that kind of like handheld camera, found footage kind of style a lot of time. And that really does help ground you into that environment. Superman saying, stay inside, be safe, don't, you know, like, and just kind of steering the fight away from people. It's great. But, you know, the Metropolis thing, I can understand people saying like it's bloody and gory. You don't really see any of that, but it is devastating.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I feel like a superhero is helping people. It's one of those things we do see, but it's kind of one of those things where we see after a while, you know, versus, you know, here, you know, we see it right away. You know, right in the midst of battle, you know, he's helping people. He's making sure, you know, if I'm gonna fight, I'm gonna make sure these people don't get hurt. But even when you consider, you know, stuff like, you know, Civil War, for example, like, you know, dude, the Avengers would fuck shit up and leave. And we see it all the time. The Power Rangers, bro, they fuck shit up and leave. Superman, what does Superman do? He gonna fuck shit up, but he's gonna help people out too. And it's, again, wholesome.
Yes, especially in there. I feel like the Metropolis one gets a little leeway because he's trying to cut the knot. You know, he's trying to get it like at the source first. So it doesn't really leave him a lot of times like kind of look around surroundings because it's such a high intensity kind of situation. But yeah, that's the only things I can understand from the complaints, you know, because the contrast is too great. I feel like that could have been eased up a little bit. That's just it.
I think also too, like maybe it's just my comic book nerd coming out.
No problem.
But like I feel like the Smallville fight, you can consider that the main Superman book, and then the Metropolis fight is kind of like an action comics where you still see Superman doing his thing, but you know there's the city of Metropolis helping each other. So yes, this was a bloody fight, but also at the, you know, bloody, gory, destructive fight. But at the same time, you also saw, you know, Perry White
I was about to say that.
Else kind of helping each other out. So that's like the contrast.
It's perfect. I'm glad you said that because a lot of times people call this movie like cold, cynical, dark, depressing. And I'm like, no, I mean, this movie's actually really heartfelt, you know? It's got a lot of heartwarming, heart-wrenching, like hearty moments to it. Like you said, you're right. There is not only like we've talked about like the whole parent stuff, like Jor-El doing everything for his son, Laura who like dies alone, but she dies alone in the hope that maybe her son survived, you know, which is like so sad. I get sad that scene every time now. Just her alone on Krypton. Like it's not something you see. It's like you never really mention like that in other ones. Like it usually happens immediately, but now she spent alone on Krypton for days. And it's like so depressing. But it's depressing in a way that's like tugs at your heartstrings, you know. You're right. Like there's actual like scenes of heroism and courage in this movie, especially in Metropolis stuff. We see Perry, you know, staying with like Jenny, the girl, in the rubble. And he can escape, but he doesn't. He stays alone. He stays there so that she's not alone when she dies. And that's powerful.
And I think that's kind of another great aspect of the movie because it's like, you know, obviously this is a Superman movie, but we also get to see the city of Metropolis shine on top of that. Like, you know, we see how him saving, you know, that bully, you know, we saw the bully grow up, you know, he's a fucking manager at IHOP, you know, we see the stuff with Perry, we see, you know, the reporter side thing, we see how the city comes together. It's more than just a Superman movie. You can say it's a Superman and Metropolis story altogether. That's what it adds to the Superman story.
It's about the characters. It's about exactly. And I think that that's really great. Like that's why I don't really like it when people don't give this movie any merit of any of this stuff. Because even if you might think the execution's bad, I don't like it when people say like it's devoid of like, because there's a lot of feeling. It's a lot of sincerity here, a lot of emotion. So like I guess we could just before we wrap up, one last at least for Man of Steel, was there another way to stop Zod?
No, I'm I mean, no, I don't think so, and I think that's why I like the scene because it was obvious that Zod was not going to give up.
Yes,
Like, what could you do in that moment? It's like even if Superman just let Zod go, those people were going to die. Like
exactly.
it was just like Zod was literally giving him no chance. Like, even before when I first saw Man the first time, I was like, yo, he ain't gonna kill him. But at the same time, it's like, yo, he's forcing his hand. What can you do? And
Exactly.
I wasn't mad at it. And even after, watching a couple more times, I get it's like you can't be mad at that, man.
I know, but and I understand, like, but I totally get that. But a lot of times you hear people say they should have read something different. And I'm like, writing something different isn't really a solution. It's you're making it less you're making it more boring at that point. Like, oh, they should have just written it in the original ending. Zod just gets sucked back into the Phantom Zone, and like that's climactic. I mean, that would be a worse ending, mainly because it's not as cathartic. You're dealing with themes and ideas and emotions that need like this kind of payoff, this release. And Zod's death, might sound really kind of dark to say it this way, but it is that release. It's like you're taking all that pain, all that like kind of repression, and all that kind of like anxiety, and all that kind of stuff that's imbued in Superman, and like that's kind of releasing it. That's why he cries. It's a cathartic release. That crying.
I'll say this another thing about the Zod thing. Like you mentioned, if he just got away, that would have been anticlimactic or whatever. But like the only way I would have accepted him getting away is if we knew right then this was going to be a universe thing. I don't think we knew back then.
It wasn't meant to be too.
It wasn't meant to be. So I was like, well, if this is going to be a one and done movie, get rid of him.
Exactly. Yeah, pay that off. Exactly. But yeah, you're right. If this was a DCEU from the beginning, yeah, save Zod. Maybe for like the Legion of Doom thing, like whatever, save him for like a big cap off movie, that kind of thing. I totally agree. But like these other things, like when people say, oh, he should have just blinded Zod. And like, do you not know how you blind someone? Because that is sick. That's pretty cruel,
Yeah.
But stuff like that. I will say one thing that's funny about this scene is that if you notice the geography of the room before that happens, there's like a huge stretch of wall that the family could have moved to. Like they're in the corner, but like they could have moved a little bit. They weren't like in like immediate danger, They had a couple more seconds to think this out. They could whatever.
They were just stuck in fear.
Exactly. Again, this movie's not perfect. There's things that are janky about it, but I think that what it's trying to say and the way it's executed is mostly really great. And I really enjoy it. It's definitely my favorite one. I think it's pretty powerful. What's your final thoughts on Man of Steel? Like before we kind of wrap up.
My final thoughts on Man of Steel is that it's great, dude. I treat it like I treat the Nolan movies, where it's just like I watch them once every couple years. Actually, honestly, doing that like kind of helps me. Like the movie doesn't get old. It doesn't tire out for me. So this most recent time was probably I got a lot from this viewing, and I'm really glad because this is honest. I can say this is easily one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and I couldn't say that before.
I totally agree, especially with how you say it. That way, you're always seeing with like fresh eyes. You're always you're evolving, and the movie's evolving with you. Really. Yeah. I also really enjoy it. I think that another thing, just before we move off, because I don't want to seem like we're like kind of like sort of like shilling this movie or anything like that. But like how after exactly that powerful scene with Zod's death and Superman starts crying, it's very emotional. The next scene is like a really jokey, weird scene where like the colonel's assistant is like, man, Superman's really hot, and like,
oh yeah,
cut that out, just cut it out, like just cut a couple of seconds early, It's really bad.
That should have been a deleted scene.
It really should have been. Like you could just you cut it away exactly after Superman flies away, because there's easy transition. Just flies away, cut. Yeah, no, it's not a perfect movie. It's messy, but it's really good. 2 thumbs up.
Same here.
All right. So let's move on to our next movie, which is Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition / Only Edition.
Good man. Good job.
So, well, what do you think? Is it good, bad, in between?
This is another movie that I've only watched a handful of times, and again, the second time I watched it, it was actually really good. I remember the first time I watched it in the movie theaters. I had a lot of questions and I didn't enjoy it at all. But when I watched the Ultimate Edition, I was like, okay, this is cool. Things flowed a lot better to the point where I didn't even realize that there were extra scenes added in.
Exactly.
I thought it was actually a great Man of Steel sequel. Because the inclusion of Lex, the way they introduced the kryptonite,
exactly,
that was ballin'. Just the whole Superman story within that movie was actually really good. The whole Justice League stuff, it wasn't bad.
No,
it wasn't bad, but it was janky.
And
like I like Batman. I thought, hey, listen, I had doubts about Batflick, but that movie shut me up. I thought Gal Gadot did her thing as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
But overall, I still think it holds up well. It's a good action flick. Like, I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree with everything you just said. BVS is like one of those movies like Man of Steel that I just kind of love more and more as it goes on. But you're right. It is really messy. Because while Man of Steel is like a really well-oiled machine, like it's very tactful, it's very succinct. BVS is bloated and messy. Like, you're right. It is half a fantastic sequel to Man of Steel because those parts are based on David Goyer's original ideas, because he's the one who pitched the entire Superman like trilogy he wanted to do to WB like directly. And then the other half is like cinematic universe bullshit and Snyder's own Justice League ideas. And yeah, the disparity, it shows. It really does show. And so it's kind of a wonder that the Ultimate Edition, like you say, like flows and is as coherent as it is, because I even now I watched Batman vs Superman in theaters, but I can't remember what they cut because all my memories are the Ultimate Edition. Like, I can't imagine how you get rid of 30 minutes of this movie. Where would you begin? And apparently, it's the entirety of the Lex plot, like his whole scheme. But like that just ruins the movie. No wonder people don't like the Man of Steel stuff because they cut out the Man of Steel sequel inside the movie. It's
so that's what they cut out.
Yeah, they cut out like how he was playing the CIA against the government and how all that bullet stuff. Like, but that's the entirety of like what makes Lex so good in this, and it's a shame. But everything else, like Superman on the world stage, Superman being a victim of controversy, that zany scheme, and you're right, the way they introduce kryptonite is really clever. That it's like the aftermath of the terraforming, like it's so ingenious. It's so like natural, a progression from a Man of Steel that it feels like, of course, this is the only way they could have done a sequel. And even how like they introduced Doomsday with like how it's Zod and a Genesis chamber. It's like Doomsday comes out of left field, but the way he's presented and how like they come to him is like in direct like the connection to Man of Steel. And it's like,
bro, that was raw.
It really was.
That was raw.
Like, we're just gonna take his body, and we have the Genesis chamber still here. He destroyed all the embryos, but like the Genesis chamber is still there, and so just like it's really well done. And but yeah, everything that's WB and Snyder based is just so ridiculous and distracting in comparison.
It's like there's a lot of stuff to enjoy about it visually, but there's some of it that we could do without.
Exactly.
Like, I think the scene where we got introduced to the other Justice League members was weird.
It really was. It felt like a promo reel made by the studio, and it basically was. They had the logos and everything. Like, okay,
how does he know that? How?
Or do they take the logos after Lex? Do they owe Lex money in future future movies? I don't know. Like, did he trademark those?
Ah,
Did he trademark those?
you might be onto something.
I might be on something. Oh, but you're right. I don't hate that half the movie. I don't hate what it does, but it's still just kind of off-putting. It's off-settling, you know. In the movie itself, in the stuff that's the Man of Steel sequel hidden in this movie, what we get to what feels like the perfect start to like the final act, the finale, the climax, where like Lex is basically won. Like he's tarnished Superman's reputation among the world, and he's brought him down to his level. It's like the perfect cap off to this Lex Luthor plot where he's playing everyone against each other. And then you realize there's like still an hour and a half left. And it's like, oh my fucking God. Like that's what I mean about this being two different ideas for a sequel stapled together. But it's fun. It is fun. The action is fun and the insanity, even if it feels unnatural, is really enjoyable. And like I said, the Ultimate Edition, it's hard to nail down anything that doesn't feel like it doesn't belong, you know? It's a very cohesive experience.
Yeah, it's also I'm glad that I remember this as I was thinking about it earlier. But I think the weird part about that, it's I don't know, maybe this is kind of like a knock against, you know, Snyder at the same time too. It's like, you know, why is it that we always keep coming to these issues with his movies where there is an extended edition? You know, like we have this with I know Justice League was a little bit of, you know, there's other things too, but
Yeah.
it was just weird to me. That's just like, I don't know, why didn't you just put this out the first time?
We had the same thing with Watchmen too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, twice actually. There's Watchmen, theatrical cut, Watchmen, director's cut, and then Watchmen Ultimate Edition.
No way! Don't tell. Are you serious?
There it is, and like it is ridiculous. You're right because either like I think that's what makes Man of Steel like a really good movie because it's a bit long. You know, it's like 2 hours and some change. But it's very to the point. It's very like simple in what it wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And Batman vs Superman is like all over the place. It's a sprawling story. You know, you have the Lex stuff, you have the Superman stuff, you have everything about the DCEU that they want to jumpstart here. And Watchmen like is also a sprawling story, but the director's cut is probably the perfect amount of that, where it's like it tells everything it needs to tell about that story. But then the Ultimate Edition that adds like 30 minutes more onto that for no reason.
I kind of have a. I don't know, now that we're talking about BVS, kind of a little bit of a tangent. I wonder if somebody, it's probably already done, but if you can just take the Ultimate Edition of Batman versus Superman and you just take out the unnecessary parts, even the Justice League battle, I wonder if you can just release that as Man of Steel too.
I would hope so. I've had that thought before too, because like you can get rid of like the DCEU promo reel trailer, you know. You can cut rid of that. No one would mind. You can get rid of like Batman at the end saying, "Oh, you know, they have to fight to find them," because it doesn't really like interrupt anything. You could get rid of most of that stuff because it just doesn't feel as connected. So I think it's possible, but it'd be janky still. Because everything, it's like that George Lucas quote when they did Phantom Menace. I don't know if you've seen that before, but here's a quote after seeing Phantom Menace where it's like 4 different storylines going on in the movie and it happened at the same time. And he's like, it's hard to take anything out because they're all interconnected in some way. And that's the same problem here. But yeah, that's what makes the Ultimate Edition, at the very least, it's watchable. It's very watchable because everything is connected, and so you know everything feels natural in how it unravels.
That's fair, definitely fair.
Yeah, but yeah, still good. I still think it gets a lot too much flack. All right, let's move on to one of the biggest points of contention with this movie. Was Batman good? Is this a good version of Batman?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like, you mean like in the sense of good versus evil, or just like in general? Like, was he a good Batman?
Like, was he a good, on-screen take on it?
Oh, hell yeah. Dude, listen, I like the Nolan movies. I like them. You know, they still up there as, you know, some of my favorites. But one of my favorite aspects about Batfleck, man, is the way he fights, bro. It's cool. It's like, Nolan's Batman, he fought like a robot. He was very stiff. Affleck's Batman, he's agile. He's all over the place. He's brutal. He's not afraid to get brutal with these characters. He's literally the embodiment of what a lot of social justice Twitter have a problem with Batman. Like, He was out here disabling people. You
Yeah.
can't say that about, um, Nolan's Batman.
Nolan Batman would just kill him,
Yeah.
He would do it like 2 blocks down the road so he wouldn't get caught, all right? Like, I wasn't me. I didn't kill him. They could have gone out of that burning building. I trapped them all in. Like, when he kills Roz by just trapping him on a crashing train. Like, you killed that guy. You killed him.
It's like, no, I didn't.
At the very least, yeah, Batman in this version takes the fight seriously.
Yeah. And I thought Bruce Wayne was cool. And again, I think what made it awesome, I'm pretty sure, Ben Affleck was he caught a lot of the flack that was online. Oh, what? Ben Affleck is Batman? Yo, listen, Ben Affleck was thinking, yo, rent is due. Rent is due. And he acted his ass off, and he proved me and a lot of people wrong. So this is a great Batman.
He definitely is. And it was a shame, like, when this movie came out, he got the most memed on, because, like, the movie wasn't well received. And remember, like, that sad Ben Affleck meme? Like that couldn't have been good. It couldn't have been healthy for him, It was everywhere. And it's a shame because he does act his ass off. And I do think that this is a really good version of Batman, like, it to an extent. Like, it's so great to have an older Batman and have this kind of contrasted with, like, this rookie Superman. Like, that way you have, like, this cynical, like downtrodden and war-weary Batman. Like, that's kind of brought back into the light by Superman, because he's still, like, like, idealistic and innocent. And it's like, it's really nice to have that dynamic, like, thematically. I still maintain that he didn't need to be in this movie. Like, he didn't.
Oh no.
But it's nice that even including him, they found a way to give him a purpose and to, like, really develop and grow the story and the characters around him. It was good. Good shit.
And also too, like, that he came into this movie with baggage.
Yes.
With a lot of, like, they didn't go too much into it, but we knew, one of the Robins were dead, we knew he was obviously still dealing with the stuff with his parents, and just him dealing with Gotham in general. So, like, the fact that he came in with that weight and we really didn't have to revisit all that stuff, that was a nice touch.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, it does give him some flavor. I will say, though, that there's some scenes that are just really janky, like, just because he is the most connected to the Justice League stuff. So that whole thing with like Wonder Woman, and how they play hot potato with, like, the USB thing that they used to steal data. That's like 20 minutes of movie that didn't need to happen, because she just gives it right back. Like it's really unnecessary. It's really bloated. But I think he does his best with it, and I think that's partly the reason why, like, people didn't like his take on it that much, because a lot of it feels meandering. Like, you spend like an hour to figure out that, oh, the guy who was looking for was Lex Luthor, and it was Kryptonite. Shit that we knew basically from the first fucking scene.
Yeah. And I'll say one last thing about Batfleck.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm seeing something. Well, I've been kind of paying attention to the reception of him, and I know over time, I think people have been giving him his flowers. I think, once the hype died down, and people really gave these movies a chance. Like, you're starting to see more as, like, okay, Batfleck's not a bad Batman. But now people are legit happy. They were really happy when it was announced that he was going to come back for the Flash movie. You know, so that's something cool to see.
And when he came, and we're getting to this later, but, like, when it was announced that he was going to come back for the reshoots,
Yes.
like, that was really good. That was really awesome. So yeah, thankfully, he does add a lot more kind of gravitas to this movie. Let's move on to is this a good version of Lex? Because that's one of the other most, like, controversial characters.
Yo, this is probably one of the best Lex Luthors I've ever seen on screen. Mm-hmm. I'm probably going to get flack for that, but dude, that Lex Luthor was awesome. That was fresh. That was weird, but it was cool.
It really was. Like, it's definitely, like, Jesse Eisenberg has definitely become one of my favorite, or if not the favorite version of Lex of mine across all media. And not simply because he's this kind of underdog in the fandom, but also because he's, like, the one that gets to the one thing I really love about Lex. which is that he's at the core like purely irritatingly petty. And like I love it. Oh my god, he's so like I know people might like prefer like the suave businessman or like the mad scientist versions of Lex. But none of that means anything if he isn't also like really, really petty. And like Snyder or Goyer or Terrio, like whoever wrote this part, like did the perfect job of imbuing this version with that sentiment. You know, like not only is his entire plan almost entirely motivated by the fact that he kind of feels inferior to Superman, but he just pisses in the jar just to get like the last jab at someone. I love it. It's fucking great.
Yo, you know, I didn't know that was a thing until like a week ago.
What?
I did not know that was piss.
It might not be, but the fact is that he's doing it just to mess with them. Like seconds before she dies. It's so good. It's so good.
Listen, man. Like, I don't understand how you don't like this Lex. It's I don't know. It's just like something about, you know, the whole nerdiness about the nerdy, like the quirky nerdy part about him is the part that's freaked me the fuck out. That's the crazy thing. Like why are you like this? There was something uneasy about it, you know?
I think that's definitely what they're trying to get across. I think you're the only person that I've come across that I've talked to that's really gotten that. Like even for me, I think, well, it's a bit much. I understand what they're going for, but I think you're definitely right. Like I think Snyder and Terrio have given like interviews where we're talking about Lex and how his mind kind of runs at like this unnatural kind of way. So he's always like doing this ultra nerdy stuff and like sputtering around. And I think that, like you're the first person who's actually, you know, been affected by that, and I think that's like really wonderful to hear. Like, wow. But yeah, I again, that's the only thing I'll give it. Critics of this character. Yeah, keep going like, here, you know, it gets a little weird. It gets a little much. Could have toned it down a bit. But no, again, his plan's solid. Like. Just everything about like his character motivation is great. One thing that really strikes me is that people kind of take him at face value. When I hear people criticize his character, like they say, "Oh, Lex Luthor is boring because he's an atheist. Like he hates Superman because he's an atheist." Like, are you dumb? He's not really an atheist. That's not what it's not what he means when he says that God's evil. Like,
yeah, no, what?
Like when he gives that whole speech about how like, oh my God didn't help me when I was abused. Yeah, he's not talking about God per se. You know, it's not doesn't mean he hates Superman because he thinks that he's God. He hates Superman because his abuse made him think that, oh, well, doesn't matter that I was abused. Doesn't matter that people are stronger than me as long as like I'm still top dog because of how smart I am. Mm-hmm. But then Superman comes along and it's like he just kind of disproves all that, and that's what he hates Superman because he makes him realize that being smart doesn't mean shit because you have like a literal, like almost divine being around. Like when that whole scene at the charity ball where he gives that speech and he starts getting fucking pissed off in the middle of the speech about like having knowledge and no power is impossible, and he starts like getting too angry to speak. I love that because he knows Superman's in the room and he can't help himself from getting mad that Superman's there. Like I love that thing because it's so subtle, but it's so great. Like people say like, "Oh, he's an atheist." Like, did you not notice?
Are you not watching them? Are you not
paying
listening?
attention? You're not paying attention. I know that part's subtle, but it's still pretty good.
You know, I didn't. The crazy thing is like, now that you mentioned that he realized Superman was in the room, I completely missed that. I missed it, but now when you said it, I was like, yo, he knew who Superman was from the jump.
Yes. And it's great. It leads to my favorite line in the movie because like when Lois figures out that Lex knows Superman is when they're on the tower together alone, and Lex is like, the fastest way to Superman is a pretty little road named Lois Lane, and he just pushes her off. Like, that's great because that line's great because it's a pun. You know, he makes a lot of puns throughout the movie, but that's like the only one that really hits because Lois Lane, like Lane is a road.
Bars. I even peep bars.
That's great.
Bars.
It's a really fun line. But yeah, no, I think that they made a really bold choice. And this characterization has only kind of grown with age too, because like in like the 4 years since the movie came out, and I know that they weren't beloved before, but I think a lot of the mystique behind like Silicon Valley tech giants has fallen like tenfold since then. Like people didn't like Mark Zuckerberg like back in 2005 or something, you know. But it's gotten way worse. And people like they're calling him weird and awkward and like unlikable and like just kind of like a natural human being. And like that's kind of what Lex is doing. It's like the weird and awkward kind of guy. So I think it's a performance that's really aged well.
Agreed.
All right. So just want to give one last thing about Lex before we move on to the next thing, which is that Lex is basically like Bruce's like shadow reflection in the movie, which I think is really, really clever. Did you catch that?
What do you mean? No.
Like he's there to just kind of compare and highlight the path that Bruce is on, because they both have basically the same motivations for killing Superman, and like that's the kind of innate feeling of inferiority that he gives him, or like they believe that he is superior to them in like a smug way. Like when Bruce is like beating him down with the kryptonite, he's like, "Oh, you thought you were special, right?" That kind of thing. And this is a part that's in the Ultimate Edition, but like you get this theme about how Lex and Bruce are trying to kill Superman to make sure that their lives mean something, like they've accomplished something with their lives. Like because they're both trust fund kids who inherited everything. But they're also mentioned at different points about how their fathers and their ancestors were all self-made men. Like Bruce says it, like the first couple of Waynes were hunters and they made their fortune that way. And Lex is all about how like his father grew up poor and worked like to become like this rich businessman. And Lex is a little more subtle about it, but Bruce says directly like last times my life can mean something. And but when Lex is telling his story about how his father became like overcame adversity, being born poor and in a war-torn country, he gets a little bit annoyed, you know. Jesse Eisenberg, he does this real subtle thing where he's talking about how, you know, he named the company after me, you know, and like, but not really, and he gets a little bit annoyed, you know, the fact that he was given everything, he didn't get anything, he didn't make anything of his own, and that's what Superman is. Superman is for both of them an accomplishment, a goal.
And if they get that cred, then Batman killed Superman, or Lex Luthor got rid of the Kryptonian, the same Kryptonian that we're having a lot of political issues with.
And they both get to feel like they're the top dog.
Okay. I didn't notice that. Okay.
Also, they're both orphans, you know, both rich orphans. So I thought that was really a really clever thing. Like it's a great again. I don't think Batman should be in this movie, but they fitted him naturally inside it.
Yeah, if in a way it shouldn't. Well, in ways it doesn't work, but at the same time they do make it work. If that makes sense,
they put thought into it after the fact, you know, which is good. Like obviously it was a mandate, but at least they put thought into it, and that's all that. It's the effort, you know.
Yeah.
So let's move on and to the same question again. Does Superman hate saving people?
No. The critics still not getting that from me, bro. No.
Oh my god, so many screen caps taken of Superman looking sad while saving folks, and they use it to make this point, like, oh, look how much of a burden, and look how much he hates it. And like, no, the answer is no. Like, he loves saving people, as we've established, but now he has to contend with like the impact that his actions are having on the world and people's lives. Like, that's a heavy burden.
It's a natural response.
Like if someone said, "Hey, you have to do this thing, or people will die," like would you feel like that was something you like was happy to do, or like would you take that really, really seriously?
I take that very seriously.
Exactly. Like you see people like deifying him, like worshiping him, you know, for God's sakes, and like he's a man, like he still thinks of himself as a man, and that worries him. Like it will worry any of us.
Yeah, that's again, it's. Well, I know we talked about it earlier, but geez, some of these takes are just so nitpicky, man. It's like, were you watching this movie?
Like people like to ignore the themes. That's it. That's just it.
And I know we talked a little bit about it too, but Ma Kent, supposedly there were issues with what she said.
Let's get into it right now. Yes, I'll let you go off on this. Let me just kind of introduce it. Is Ma Kent a sociopath? Go on.
No. Ma Kent is she is a reasonable mother. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's just say, I don't know, I become a famous YouTuber.
Yeah.
I don't have to be a YouTuber. I don't have to be a YouTuber. I don't have to deal with the shit that comes with with being a YouTuber, and we all know what that comes with a lot of the times. And if my parents see me being distressed, the first thing they're going to tell me, or at least one of the first things they're going to tell me, is you do not have to do this. That is a natural response that a parent would give a child. And we see that right here. The world is tearing apart her baby.
Yeah.
And he don't owe them a damn thing. He decides to put on that damn suit and go save people and trees and all that, and they are still tearing him apart. Your mother is going to tell you, you don't owe him a damn thing.
Exactly. What makes that scene so powerful, like, along with what you said, is that, yes, of course, like, that's a natural, caring response. People call these movies cold. People call these movies like cynical. But that's a natural, caring response that comes from an emotional place. But also the fact that, like, this is all about Superman's agency, like his free will. Like, he has the choice. We all have the choice, like, every day to do the right thing. And Superman is put in a position to, like, do you want to do the right thing? Like, even if it's like the hard thing to do. And he chooses yes. You know why? Because Superman, at the end of the day, in these movies, is a hero. He's a good person, and he knows it, and he wants to be a good person. He makes that choice to be a good person. And, like, can't think of anything, like, more uplifting than that. I really can't. These movies are uplifting,
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of one of those things where the criticisms don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so let's just say they decide, let's just say he really listened and he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'm hanging up the cape. And even if he did it for maybe a solid chunk of the movie, that would have been torn apart as well. Oh my gosh, he doesn't care. He really doesn't care. All these things happened because he didn't save them. But you guys just tore apart the fact that...
This is my favorite thing, too. A couple of weeks ago, it went viral on comics Twitter a little bit. I don't know if you saw it, but, like, it was an interview with Snyder that was published in, like, DC Comics when this movie came out. And Snyder says, like, oh, this is a movie we're tackling with the idea that maybe, like, Superman just can't win anymore. People are always, like, judging and second guessing his motives. And people took that comment, like, Superman can't win, to mean, like, oh, see, Snyder just thinks about winning and losing in binary terms, like, he just thinks that Superman only cares about winning. Like, no, that's not it. Like, Superman just can't win. That's an idiom. Like, when you just can't win, it's because people are always on your case. And that doesn't mean that's something you prioritize, but it is something that you can be kind of hassled with and burdened with, and it's ridiculous. It really is. Because you're right. This is a movie where, like, Superman does kind of stop being Superman for a little bit, like, he does, like a good 5 or 10 minutes not being Superman. He does give up, but he only gives up when he's led to believe by Lex Luthor that he's failed. That he's failed people, not in the fact like, oh, they're mean to me, but like, I failed them. I'm not good enough to be their hero. That's when he gives up.
Yeah, and it's just people just kind of just making something out of nothing.
Exactly. All right. So let's move on to the biggest scene of the movie. The Martha scene. Let's just talk about it. It'll feel weird if we didn't talk about it. Do you have any ideas on the Martha scene? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, the Martha scene. Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on it? I have my own thoughts, and I want to hear yours first.
I understand why people poke fun at it, man. Like I get it. But again, as I watched it, most recently last week, I like it. Is it a little weird? Is it a little janky? Kind of odd, yes. But I reckon that her name is Martha kind of just like triggered Bruce in a sense. It was like, wait, what? That's the name of my mother, and he's going through the flashbacks of the death of his family. So I get there was some kind of emotional weight behind Superman saying that. So I get it.
Yeah, me too. Like my problem with the scene is that, yes, the intention is great. At least the main intention, like that purpose of that scene, if in terms of the Superman focus sense is that Batman starts to realize and comes to understand that Superman isn't like this like overlord, like superior being that he's like trying to distance, like trying to make the other, like he's trying to otherize him. He's like this person. He's this person who has a family that he loves and that he cares about, and that he's like they're not as different as he thinks or he wants to believe. Like that's great. That's a great idea. It's a great emotional beat, and the scene mostly captures that. But I think that the Batman intent of that scene tramples all over that thing. Like it's like a stampede. It overshadows it because the way it happens is like he says save Martha, and then Batman just kind of gets off his focus and he starts doing the thing I think that ruins the scene. Like you could change everything about that scene. You could have Superman say save my mother, all that kind of stuff. But what ruins the scene is when Batman says, "Why did you say that name?" Because it puts focus on the name rather than the actual emotional focus of the scene itself, you know? Like you can have him figure out the name later, you can have him figure out the name internally, but him vocalizing that, it makes it entirely about the name Martha instead of about how Superman is a human being, and that Bruce just wasn't realizing that, wasn't accepting it, but now he can. Now he realizes that he's like a real person.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. I think just saying that out was kind of just like, I don't know, you're kind of like a triggered moment. Maybe that's just me. Yeah,
I totally understand that. Like,
yeah.
he has PTSD about it, but I think that like putting them together, one overtakes the other. They don't work. They're not meshing together, not integrating. Like you get like the plot purpose, the Superman purpose of this scene, and then it's just like kind of overshadowed. Like the other part is just kind of like just completely like overtaking it, and it just kind of you gotta pick a lane. All right, maybe have Bruce freak out later about it, like kind of internalize it later. Maybe like when he's fighting KG Beast, and KG Beast has the gun, the fire gun to Makin's head.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe have him get triggered then, something like that.
Okay.
Something like that.
But like, I see what you're saying.
But him going like, why'd you say that name? And then have him go like, Martha won't die tonight. Like, you're putting too much focus on the name. You're putting too much literalism on an emotional moment.
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. But yeah, the intent of the scene is good. It just I think there's too many jokes about it, but I understand why people are joking.
Yeah, it's and yeah, I don't know, when I first got the joke, like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I kind of felt the joke kind of just like ran itself to the ground. But then over time, again, because this is just a movie I just don't watch that often. But over time, I was like, I get it. It's still a little weird, but I get it. I like the intent. So again, the intent kind of just that I'm more fascinated by the intent, if anything.
Yeah, this is just definitely one of the things there. I get it, but I understand the hate for it too. Like these movies aren't perfect. Like they deserve a little more credit than they get. That's all we're saying here. They deserve a little more credit. But yeah. So final thoughts on Batman vs Superman.
Batman vs Superman, again, it's a solid flick. It's a movie again that I would watch again after some time. Still a little janky. I still do believe you can cut out that movie and make a decent Man of Steel 2 sequel. I'll stand behind that. But the Batman stuff was cool. The way he was portrayed was awesome. That's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Again, I liked Wonder Woman's inclusion, but at the same time, there's a lot of things the movie could have done without. And I also understand, now that we're talking about it, I can see why initially the studio was just like, yo, we're gonna chop this movie down for time purposes, but
they chopped the wrong stuff.
They chopped the wrong stuff.
Chop out the nightmare sequence. Chop out the Justice League promo. I know that's what you want, but you're making it be worse. That would be cool to see in the extended edition. Like, oh, you didn't see the Justice League scenes? We're going to be in the extended edition. That's cool to see, but you chopped the wrong stuff.
Yeah. No. The Justice League stuff should have been in a deleted scene.
Yeah, exactly. That's the stuff you save for like the extended version, the worst extended version.
Yeah.
But no. My own final thoughts is that BBS, yeah, messy, bloated, unfocused in terms of plot, but very coherent in terms of construction. But it's also one of these movies where, like Man of Steel, I still think it has a lot of heart. People keep calling these movies cynical, dark, depressing and shit like that. I don't see it. Like people even say like killing Superman was like really cynical, really really mean of Zack Snyder. Like no, like that scene, it shows that he's just like Iron Man, just like Avengers. It shows that they're willing to go to distance. Like, Superman, like his entire thing is like how far does he want to go to be the hero he wants to be, you know? And that's this. He'll give everything for it. And that's what makes his death so powerful. Like, people's like, oh, why do people like Superman now? Why are people mourning Superman? Don't they hate him? And like, no, do you not see? Like, he might be like controversial, but the everyday human being, people on the ground, they all love Superman. They're worshiping him throughout the movie. That's one of the things that makes him worried, that makes him anxious, like it brings him down. And like that's what makes that scene so powerful. That's what makes people like love him. They respect him now. They understand that they were wrong about him. You know.
Yeah, and again, it's I forgot to mention earlier, but dude, these movies have their own charm.
Exactly.
You know, that's what I like. It's their own feel, you know, their own flavor, and I think it's the charm that really helps it age well for me. You know,
if anything else, they stand out.
Yeah, it's like you know, there's a tone and a flavor and something that I appreciate. So
definitely,
yeah.
But one thing I want to point out is that on my latest watching, and I've seen this movie like a couple times, more than a couple of times, honestly. I really enjoy Lex Luthor stuff. But one thing I noticed just on my last watch before recording this is Perry White. Perry White's arc in this movie is so subtle, so tiny, but it's really, really powerful. Especially in that kind of doing the world, the characters in Metropolis kind of thing. Because throughout the movie, he's like always like putting Clark down. He's always like kind of bullying Clark a little bit.
Yeah.
He's really mean. Like, you're a dork, you're a nerd. Like, do your job. Like, why aren't you doing your job? What are we paying you for? That kind of thing. And Clark is like always going out of his way to like try to investigate Gotham, try to investigate Gotham's corruption and crime, that kind of thing. And he's always telling him like, drop it, don't do this shit. You know, do your job. One of my favorite little subtle moments is when Lois comes to him like in the middle of the Doomsday fight, like, I need to get a helicopter, I need to get to Gotham, and then Perry White's like why go to the Doomsday fight and report there, you know? And she's like, it's not for reporting, it's not for my job. And Perry White like stops for a bit, you know?
Yeah, I remember.
He's like, get her a chopper immediately, like, you know? And I never got this before, but it's because of Clark. He does it because he realizes that Clark must be in trouble. Like, because Clark has always been like gung ho about Gotham, and then like his girlfriend comes up and says, "I need to go to Gotham immediately. It's an emergency." He's like, "Holy shit!" Like, and that's so great because it shows that despite like him being really kind of a jerk throughout the most of the movie, he cares.
He cares. Yeah, I took it as what I connected it to was just because remember he was very against, you know, her just trying to help Superman before, you know, the Capitol exploded. And, you know, he said that line. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to risk this so you can pass notes to, you know, your little super boyfriend. And so when that scene came up where he's like, I need a chopper, you know, I thought he did it more for Superman because he realized, you know, the connection that they had.
That's possible too.
Yeah.
But again, that's a really, really powerful moment. It could work in so many ways. And I think that the way it's written and the way that Lawrence Fishburne kind of nails it. It's that thing that gives these movies their charm. These moments. Like, you could tell me a moment from Doctor Strange and I couldn't place it like from Ant-Man 2 or like Captain Marvel. It could be from any of those movies. But that moment can only exist here. All right. Let's move on to like our final segment in this retrospective. Justice League. The Snyder Cut is finally coming out after 3 years. It seemed like an insane proposition. But let's start off with like one big topic on my mind, and I know we talked about this before. I'm going to call it the Goyer problem, because up until now, all of these movies have been spearheaded by David Goyer. Now, this is something that you don't hear a lot. The people who hate these movies don't talk about it. The people who love these movies don't talk about it. But David Goyer is basically the only reason any of this exists. You have Man of Steel. It was entirely David Goyer's idea. You have Batman vs Superman, which was entirely David Goyer's idea before it got hijacked by WB to become like a Justice League prequel. But so now you have a movie that doesn't have any David Goyer in it. He just bounced. He insulted Martian Manhunter, and then you got like, nah, I'm out of here. All this comic book shit, not for me. I respect that. I really do. You like Martian Manhunter is for nerds. Then he just left. So it's good. That's literally what happened. But yeah, that kind of worries me because Man of Steel was the best one. And Batman Superman, a lot of stuff that would have been Man of Steel 2 and that very likely could have been entirely David Goyer's like contribution could be absent. What do you think?
We'll see. Like we'll see because there's a lot to prove in this movie. There's a lot of emotional weight that go. There's just a lot happening with this movie. So I don't know. It'll either I don't want to say tarnish, Snyder's legacy, but I feel like this is make or break it because we've been dealing with the whole release the Snyder Cut thing, and then we got the whole Ray Fisher thing. Then we had the whole thing where the actors were they were advocating for the Snyder Cut. So and now we finally got it. So this is honestly being touted as like this is going to be a great thing. There is a lot of hype behind this movie,
like magnum opus or something.
Yeah, it's like this is nuts, and maybe it's just me, but a lot of the times when I go into these movies, when I go into these movies and there's a lot of hype behind them, it tends to fall flat a lot of the times. But I can only hope, this is a decent movie without, Gory's contribution. I can only hope it's decent. I can only hope it gets the job done.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's all I can say. I hope it gets the job done, and we can put this to I'm not going to say we could put this to rest because it is going to be put to rest.
Yeah, definitely. I hope my only worry is that so many people are invested in the fact that Man of Steel and Batman Superman were like wholly Snyder's original ideas. Like it's gone to the point where like people will discount Goyer's contributions like wholesale. Like they won't even mention his name. It'll always be like Zack Snyder's 5-movie plan for the DCEU. Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and the 3 Justice League movies. Like, but that's not even close to reality. And like, again, I have no doubt that at the very least, there might be some tonal similarities to their movies because it's still Zack Snyder at the helm. The visual medium of stuff is still really important to movies, not just screenwriting. I was worried that these are going to be like completely Snyder's ideas at this point. Like these is going to be completely founded in his ideas, and you're right because it's 4 hours, so who knows if there aren't good ideas. Have you heard? Have you read the article that came out today? It was interesting.
I did.
Some of those ideas sound rough. That got cut, like the Batman falling in love with Lois Lane thing.
Oof.
That sounded like a soap opera bullshit. Yeah, so I'm worried. I am worried a little bit. I like a couple of months ago, before I realized how important Goyer actually was, I was actually really excited. But now I'm cautious. Especially when we hear about the cul-de-sac. Yeah, I mentioned this last time we talked. You want to explain the cul-de-sac?
No, you do a better job at it. You can explain it.
No problem. All right. So the cul-de-sac is basically what Walter Hamada called the Snyder Cut, in that a bunch of it was meant to be like a hub movie, a springboard for other DCEU movies that basically no longer exist. Like it was meant to jumpstart the original version of Aquaman, the original version of Wonder Woman 2, the original version of The Flash, but those movies no longer exist anymore. So you have the teases and the setup for that in a movie like this that won't go anywhere.
So all roads lead to nothing.
Nothing. because they
Yep.
made Aquaman already, and they're gonna make Aquaman 2 about Aquaman. They're gonna make Wonder Woman 3 about Wonder Woman 2. They're gonna make the Flash movie fucking Flashpoint, which we'll get into later. But yeah, so that's gonna be awkward because this movie is 4 hours long. So who knows?
And yeah, I think to the fact that it's 4 hours long kind of just circles back to something. Yeah, the whole BVS thing. It's just like this can't be a reoccurring thing, man. Like where there's multiple cuts, where there's just like you should be able to condense something like Man of Steel is a great example.
Exactly.
You told your story, you got your characters together, and we got something great out of that. But the fact that this is 4 hours long, that's demanding a lot from the audience.
It's demanding, yeah.
And this again, I'm gonna circle back to it. It's like you're demanding this much time with a very rocky, we can say this is a rocky track record.
Yeah.
This isn't the greatest track record. This isn't, a Kevin Feige or the Russo brothers where, you can say they've built that rapport. So, we can get to an Avengers Endgame that's 3 hours. This is Zack Snyder where he's, Man of Steel, me and you may love it, but rocky. Batman versus Superman, very rocky.
Yes.
Justice League, rocky.
And then the ones that no longer connect to this movie at all, really, they've been getting better and better reception.
Yeah.
So this feels a little bit of a step back.
Yeah.
And it might be really good. It might really have stuff of merit to it. I'm not going to discount that, but it's on the most precarious position out of all these movies so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, but yeah, honestly, do you think it's going to be any better?
This is. I'm glad you asked that question. So for the audience, I did not watch the first Justice League movie. I watched it. I was half asleep when I watched it. I fell asleep and I never watched it again because when I woke up that same weekend, I saw this was not a good movie. That's what I saw, and I was like, I can live without it. But I heard the Snyder Cut's coming out. I was like, you know what? I would rather that be my first introduction. And honestly, too, it's great that we're doing this podcast right on the heels of that article because, Zack Snyder, he was told not to watch this movie.
Exactly. So now you're going to be able to experience it like he hopefully will experience it,
Yeah.
as its own thing. And, we can, that way when it comes out, we can do this again and we have our own differing perspectives. I've seen that movie like 3 times, the theatrical cut like 3 times now. Just to remind myself how bad it is, honestly. But like your fresh perspective and like my comparison perspective, and we'll meet back up after that.
Yes.
But I think it's going to be better. Again, I don't know if it's going to be good. It's the thing because the movie as it is a nothing movie. It's like a flat line. There's no stakes, no character, no arcs, no progression, no development, no emotion to it. It's a flat line. And even in his worst kind of indulgence movies, like Sucker Punch, that movie has like the simplest, like almost nothing of a story. But the way that Snyder actually, tells the story, like with visuals, some of them are actually like really beautiful, really, really impactful kind of scenes that kind of carry the characters and kind of like the engagement along. And if this movie is anywhere close to at least that level, then I'm good. I'm good on it being better. And then you have stuff like the Junkie XL score. Have you listened to the track they officially released?
No.
It's like 7 minutes long. It's called The Crew at War Power. It's basically the extended version of the trailer track, where it rolled the drums and like the soaring music. And it's really good. And I think like that's something that a lot of movies are missing, and a lot of DC movies, regardless of like Snyder or not, have really excelled at like really great scores. Like and scores that audio component is really important. Like it gets you invested in a sensory level. So I think it'll be good. I think it'll be better. Good. Jury's out. We'll see.
See.
Now, lastly, do you think there's going to be a sequel? There should be a sequel.
No, I don't think so. The Snyder Cut thing, like, there's so many intricate parts to it. There's the stuff. There's the stuff with his daughter. There's the all the behind the scenes drama, the stuff with Ben Affleck, Ray Fisher. Like, you could just leave the main Justice League movie, the first one, and you can just leave it, and that would just be its tale. And I think, as much as I hate to say it, we would go on life just life would continue on.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that this man Zack Snyder is able to see his vision.
Yeah.
Yes, it's coming off the heels of a very controversial campaign. Yes, it's coming off the heels of a lot of just controversial things in general. But the main thing is he gets to see his vision. And I read the article today. He's doing it for his daughter.
Yes.
And a lot of the release the Snyder Cut folk, they've raised a lot of money to help people as well. So there's a lot here to take in, that you can call a benefit, that you can call good.
Yeah.
So I think that's great, but I think this is just a moment that can be done once. They already said this is a cul-de-sac that leads nowhere. And I think just this being out and it's his final vision, that's it. We can move on. We should move on from this. Let's not touch it again.
Yes. So I'm going to bring this up as well. But I think there probably won't be a sequel, but I don't believe that his fans will ever stop demanding it. I want to focus on the positive too. I think that it's great that Snyder is able to get closure, or at least some sort of closure from this project. I think that's wonderful. It must be so harrowing, and he's putting like his daughter's favorite song in the movie. He's dedicating the movie to her. It's wonderful. It's so amazing that he's able to like come back and try to work through this tragedy on something that was as important to him as this, and it's amazing. But a lot of his fans are like just so wild, and I don't want to say all of his. I don't want to say anything like that because I want to see this movie released. I've used that hashtag like once or twice in the last couple of years. I do want to see this movie come out, and it's coming out, and I want to see it. I want to enjoy it. But there are some people on both sides, on the far ends of both sides, that just are caught in this feedback loop of this, in this forever war, or where they just get more and more intense because they feed off each other. People who hate everything Snyder does, who hate everything about Snyder, and people who want nothing more but Snyder to, like, I guess, remake his own vision again and again and kind of lock him in. And that's sad because you see, I heard people already starting to organize, like trying to boycott other DC movies and shit like that, of trying to get people fired or shit like that, like even regular people fired. And it's harrowing. I know that they've done good, but it does remind me a little bit of kind of like how Comicsgate kind of operates a little bit, where they've also done charity drives too, and that doesn't stop them from being like really scummy. And there is a tangent on both sides. People who don't like Snyder and people who do love Snyder that are scummy. And I think like we're never gonna hear the end of it from them. Like the last couple, over the last couple of days, there was a person, a Snyderverse person, and a couple of them who supported her, who like started harassing Christopher Reeve fans.
Jesus Christ!
And, like, I don't think we're never gonna hear the end of this unless Snyder definitively says, "I do not want to make a sequel. That's it. I do not want to do this. It's not what I want for my career. I want to keep making my own movies my own way." We're not gonna hear the end of it.
So it's pretty much up to him to kind of just like put the flame out.
Yes, because if it was up to them, they would keep him making DC movies. And like that's what worries me. But yeah, who knows if they announce like a sequel miniseries, because I think that anything would have to go through HBO, and they usually do shows. Like I'd watch it. Hopefully, good. But yeah, so yeah. 3 more weeks, and we're gonna see how this turns out.
Yep.
All right, so let's move this on with our last segment, which is the future of the DCEU, Flashpoint. Mind taking us off?
You take it off. You take it off.
All right, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to explain because Flashpoint is a clusterfuck. It's basically not even a Flash movie at this point. We've gotten news that not only are we seeing like 2 different kinds of Batman in the movie. We're also introducing the new version of Supergirl in the movie, and I don't even know where Ezra Miller is going to fit in. It feels, as much as the Snyder Cut feels a little bit like we're taking a step backward. Um, Flashpoint is like we're taking like 5,000 steps backward, you know, or we're going way back into actually being bloated. We're going way back into not having a vision. This doesn't feel like a vision. It feels like an extended version of that, like a DCEU promo reel from Batman vs Superman, that Justice League promo reel in BVS, you know, but extended to an entire movie. Like, oh, here's our universe. Here's Supergirl. Here's Batman. That kind of bullshit.
Yeah, the Flash. Just news about this Flash movie. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating because we saw the DCEU come back in a way with Aquaman, Shazam, Joker. Joker was a huge one.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman also, the first one, where one of the great things about these movies is that they're individual movies. They're focused on individual storytelling. You know, this is something that I like that Marvel is doing a lot in the comic books. It's, if you read a Marvel comic now, like, yes, things may tie in, but this is individual storytelling. You can pick this up. Yo, I don't got to worry about knowing this, knowing that. It's individual. There's a beginning, middle, and end. But I feel like where we saw the comeback, the Flash movie is like 12 steps back. It's like, this is like BVS, but on crack.
Exactly.
What's crazy here is just like, you have more than enough to make a standard Flash. You have more than enough to make a very straightforward, fun, cool Flash movie, you know? And they're just choosing not to. And I have a very big gripe against like big superhero team up type stuff, because I can't lie, I didn't enjoy Endgame like that. And I thought the last time Crisis on Infinite Earths was just a clusterfuck. I couldn't tell you what happened.
It was a huge letdown. Endgame was a letdown. And Crisis on Infinite Earths was a letdown. And one thing that combines them is that they put the spectacle over the character, you know?
Yes.
Like they put the idea of like, oh, look at all this shit, over like what that actually means on like a storytelling level, on like on an intimate personal level. And that's what this feels like. It feels like a checklist. Like, oh yes, wouldn't it be cool to see this? Wouldn't it be cool to see 80s Batman, Michael Keaton's back, Supergirl? Who gives a shit? Like, you're saying that there is enough storytelling meat in the Flash to like to deliver a good movie. And it's true, because like we just listed like Aquaman, like Joker, Wonder Woman, Shazam. What's funny is that all those have like really, really insanely complicated backstories, because they keep getting rebooted and unbooted and like changed and retconned their backstories throughout the history of comics. The Flash is very linear. Is like the mythology of the Flash, it might get changed here and there. There might be like a Flashpoint and a reboot or two in there, but it's usually really straightforward. And like, it's insane they couldn't make a movie out of something that simple.
Yeah, and I feel like because I remember we kept hearing news about, oh, this director's leaving this, the director's this is that, the movie was in development hell for a long time.
There's like 5 scripts.
Yeah, and I honestly feel like the first director, you know, or maybe the second or third, really wanted to tell a straight up Flash movie. I feel that, I don't know, we may never know, but
I think that was like Cary Fukunaga.
Yeah, wasn't there like a black dude who's also?
I think so.
I forgot. It
was like 12. It was like 12 people.
Yeah. Yeah. The another point too I want to make is that, like, notice how we're hearing more about who's going to be in this movie more than what is the plot of this movie. Every other week it's, hey, this person's here, this person's here.
Oh, but
we don't know what's happening in this movie.
Oh, but don't you know, it's Flashpoint. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. This is a literal sentiment I heard and I saw online. Flashpoint's already a mess, so this makes perfect sense. No, why Flashpoint to begin with? I mean, like, people complain about BBS having Death Superman in it, and like, it's a second movie. It's too soon. Imagine if that was in the first movie. Imagine if Man of Steel was the death of Superman. That's how this feels, but like 10,000 times worse. It's ridiculous. It really is because you could have just told a simple Rogue story and then had like this clusterfuck for a sequel. No one would care. Just tell the simple stuff. Introduce us to your characters. Introduce us to the world first. But they don't want to do that. They want like something that will get easy cred, easy links, easy articles.
Mhm.
And it's a shame because what it means is that like the most accurate Flash stuff is going to be like the 5-second cameo in Suicide Squad.
And I feel I feel bad for, and in a sense, I think it's great that we have, it's great that we have a Supergirl or whatever, but so how long is this Supergirl going to, what is her screen time? Is she just going to be somebody that pops in for 2-3 seconds for like a montage? Like, is she going to be a focal point in the movie? Like, why would this be the movie that you want to introduce a brand new Supergirl? So that makes zero sense to me.
Like make a Man of Steel 2, like make a real Man of Steel 2, introduce her there.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, again, salute to Homegirl.
Yeah.
It's just, this is great for her. This is great for the Latino community, but at the same time, they're just from a story perspective, there doesn't seem to be any thought put into this, and I am not betting my movie. I'm not betting my chips on this being a good movie to watch. Like, I'll check it out when the theatrical run is over.
Me too.
Yeah,
probably. I might wait for the camera or something. Something like that. If I review it like the week of, you'll know why.
Oh my god.
But no. One thing that gets to me, and I saw that, is that I feel like they're going for this because after like 8 seasons on the CW, they probably don't want to redo any of the CW plots because the CW has kind of run the gamut of all the plots at this point, like Gorilla City. They also done Flashpoint. They've done a lot of New 52 stuff. But one thing that the CW never did was an actual Rogue story. Like by the 3rd episode they showed up, they're already friends and they know each other's identity. So they never did a Rogue story. So you could just do it. Just do it. It's simple.
Oh nah, listen, bro, listen. If I could see what's his name, Bruce Wayne's parents get killed like 25 fucking million times. No, bro, no, nah, we're not doing that, bro. Nah. You can tell a good. There's no reason why if you did on the CW and they didn't really do it that well, you can do it here. Like, nah, bro, nah, that's not an excuse. Exactly. I'm not saying that to knock what you're saying. Just like that's not an excuse for them.
Exactly. I mean, that's an excuse because they didn't even do it. But yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully they see the light and like this just gets shelved into non-existence, but we're probably going to be seeing like trailers or something. So it's gonna be a shame. But fingers crossed that it turns out good and that everything turns out good. I want everything to be good. I don't want to see shit. I want to see good stuff.
Same.
But yeah, that's it. That's it for like the DCEU at this point. Fingers crossed. It's things turn out well.
Yeah.
All right. So see you again in 3 weeks.
See you again. Oh man, it's gonna be fun.
Oh man, I'm gonna stay up the internet for like 3 days, man.
Well, we gotta wait till they got 6 p.m. 6 p.m. our time.
I know that like the Wonder Woman came out at like 1 p.m. last time. Is that not going to be a thing?
It's gonna be 6 p.m. our time.
Oh, great! I'm gonna be in middle of whatever. Definitely, I'm gonna be off the internet for like 2 days at most to watch this thing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, see you again next time. Mind kind of giving your sign off?
Yeah, man. Elvis, thank you for having me on, man. Mm-hmm. It's always a great time, my dude. And yeah, dude, I'm excited for the next 3 weeks, and dude, I definitely can't wait to be back on here because it's gonna be fun, man.
It is.
Like coming into this with not seeing the first Justice League and bouncing back and forth with you, man. So yeah, much appreciated, my brother.
Thank you so much. And I want to say that like it's so great, and everyone who's listening should just really check your channel out. I'll put the links in the description below. You're amazing, and all your content's amazing. Like all the kind of live streams you do, and all the like kind of in-depth kind of videos on like not just comics but also like shows and movies. They're really fantastic. So please check them out. And I'll say thank you so much for listening. Have a great weekend, and see you again next time.